All right. We are here on the Combat Zone. Me and Dylan are lucky enough to interview UFC featherweight, the Moroccan Devil, Youssef Zalal. How are you doing, Mr. Zalal?
I'm good, my man. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
Fantastic.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but we wanted to come on, talk to you. You're fighting November 2nd in Edmonton versus Jack Shore. It's very exciting. It's your first fight in front of a big crowd since August of 2022. What are you most excited for in this event?
To be honest, I'm just excited to gonna go see Canada and fight outside the United States. So that's kind of I feel like Canada's pretty much very close to the United States, but I've never been there. I cornered in Melbourne, Australia, where two of my teammates fought there. But I'm actually pretty excited just to kind of experience it in a more of an international way and like kind of see how things go and things work and just seeing new things. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, and I know you're a big Drake fan. He might be in attendance. If he's there, you
Hey,
think
the
you're going to
six
be doing
God, come
anything
on
for that?
now. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna be there, but I walk out with his song. That's my song, Up All Night. That's my walkout song of every fight. So maybe one day. That's one thing I have in my bucket list is have him walk out and at least be in the fan. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But like I asked you, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your career pre this UFC run. You were an amateur with a 4-1 record, and then you went pro. What made you feel ready to become a professional fighter after those 5 fights?
well, actually, it was like this crazy fight story about it. The fight that I lost before I won the last one was I fought there like literally made Ramadan. I was training 3 times, twice a day in Ramadan, no water, no food, and my body was just so fatigued on fight day because I was literally Ramadan. I had 1 week to eat and then 1 week to cut weight, and then I fought. And that was the biggest mistake in my life. I'm never doing that again. And because I did it again as a professional in the UFC. But yeah, it was like kind of like, man, it was like a whole setback. It was for the title. I was so mad, like upset and everything. And then the following fight, I had a nutritionist. I did everything. I followed like my plan. I was all professional about it and everything. And then my opponent misses weight and all that stuff. So I go in and like really just like had all this motivation and like just ready to prove something to everybody and myself. And that's when coach was like, yeah, this is the performance I was looking for. And then boom, he turned me pro after that.
No, that's awesome. And then you got to the UFC when you were 7-2. You were supposed to be on Contender Series before that. You fought a bunch of UFC veterans in your pre first run UFC or pre UFC career. But you got to the UFC. You won your UFC debut. What was that like?
Oh, bro, it was crazy. It was the whole thing about the UFC debut was like I fought in LFA. I had the knockout, flying knee knockout, and that was at a catch weight. I was like, yeah, they're not gonna sign me after the catch weight and
That
all
was a
this stuff.
crazy knockout, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy with it, fuck. But they were saying about, yeah, like I don't know. I didn't even know that I was in the talk of a UFC fight. So for me, it was just like more of, hey, like I was bothering my coaches and my managers. I was like, hey, like, what's the deal? Like, when are we gonna fight another fight in LFA? That was all I was just like aiming for. I was like, hey, give me another fight in LFA. LFA was like, oh, it's hard to fly him out because this, and that. And I was like, well, what do you want me guys to do? He's like, just stay ready, just stay ready. And then one day it was like, my coach was like, hey, stay ready. Your name is getting floating around in the UFC. And I was like, what? And I was like, I didn't believe him. I was like, bro, get out of here. I don't believe you. And then sure enough, my manager calls me, FaceTimes me. He's like, hey, they need a guy. And boom, you're in. And I was like, bro, I was speechless. Oh man, I remember that moment like I will always remember that moment. Yeah, but that was awesome, man. And then to find out it was John Jones' card, and I go in the first day there, I get to see his like hold his belt, take a picture with him, and yeah, it was crazy, man. It was a memory of a lifetime for sure.
Yeah, and then you won your next two straight. You went 3-0. But after that, you faced a little bit of adversity. You faced the current champion, Ilia Topuria, won the third round unanimously, no big deal. But then you ended up getting cut from the UFC. From that time, you went 5-0 or 6-0 outside of the UFC with 4 finishes. what was your mindset trying to get back into the UFC?
My mindset was like mostly not to listen to what people think about me and what people feel about me, to be honest. So that was like my biggest thing. I feel like I had too much pressure on myself in a bad way, not even a good way. Like right now, I have a lot of pressure on me. I feel like in a great way, you know what I mean? But I feel like in the past, I was just let the pressure like take over, you know what I mean? And kind of like in a bad way. So it's like I'm listening to these guys. I'm like, okay, I got a whole country behind me. I got this, I got that. So it's kind of like this whole thing about it, and it was just getting bad and bad and bad. And for me to fight from millions of people and to go to fight in front of like 300 people on something like that. So it was kind of like a lot of ego involved and a lot of like becoming a man and growing as a man. You know, you're like you got to go over your feelings and really like, is this what you really want to do? If this what you really want to do, you gotta go prove it to yourself and then f everybody else. And that's kind of like the mentality I had, and that's like what the biggest switch that hit in that certain time. I think it's like everything is with purpose, and then everything is with like more precise about my things that I want to do.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I've been covering those regional shows. I can imagine going from UFC to that. It's interesting for your ego, you know?
It's fun though. It humbles you. It humbles you really quick, and then it shows you what you're about and what can you be about. You know what I mean? To have a story for people to see, and then to get motivated by it, to get bring smiles to them and stuff like that. That's what's most important about this.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, Youssef, you won a lot of fights in your career and a lot coming from the ground as well. But you also have the power to knock guys out. I mean, we've seen that time and time. So since rejoining the UFC, your last two wins being submissions, are you really looking to finish guys on the ground from the start, or are you kind of just seeing where the fight takes you?
I don't know, man. It's weird. I never think about like going into the ground, like, okay, I'm gonna finish somebody in the ground, blah blah. And I was like, it kind of worked out beautifully because I got my black belt on January of this year, so it's kind of like, okay, now we get to show at least like my little black belt out of it a little bit. So I was like, making my little professor happy and stuff like that. But I come from a striking background, man. So it's like that's my thing, and I feel like I almost didn't have like I don't have that chance of showing it that much. I feel like with Billy it was like more of, okay, I was faster than this kid. I was just picking him apart, blah blah blah. But when I took his back, I was like, oh, well, he's not defending that well. So I was like, okay, like next round goes in. I was like, oh, for sure, I'm going to the ground again just to make it the simplest way. And John Owens was like, obviously he's a straight powerhouse, coming in, and even the music he walked out to was a powerhouse. I was like, oh my God, like who we raving, who we about to go after. And yeah, so I knew that I was like, I had to take him down and like really just make this fight as easy as I can.
Yeah, and then I also got to ask because this relates to this weekend. Ilya Topuria is obviously fighting Max Holloway this weekend, and you got to go the distance with him. So, what was it like going the distance with Ilya Topuria? And then, secondly, how do you think this fight week goes between Ilya and Max?
So actually, a lot of people don't know I fight Ilya Taporia. This is the crazy part is like because they don't show me in the highlights. They don't show me in his highlights. They don't show me in none of that. You know what I mean? So for me, it was like kind of like I was like, all right, there's not a whole lot to show in that fight except him throwing my ass 3 feet up. But that was the one thing that they had. But I'm very excited for this fight, especially him against Max. I feel like I always grew up watching Max, and obviously what Max achieved is ridiculous, man. It's the amount of things that he's done is amazing. And to see a guy that I fought, he's a champ and defending the belt against a legend, you know what I mean? So for me, it makes me very excited, but it makes me it's an important win as well to see who won and stuff like that and to keep building my story.
No,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that fight was awesome too. Like you unanimously won the third round. Like you're the only guy really in the UFC to give him problems so far.
Yeah, I feel like I like my style gives a lot of problem to a lot of people. Obviously, back then, I feel like my grappling and my wrestling was not as good as now. And obviously, I got a lot more weight on me now. I feel like when I fought him, I walked in on cage fight day. I think I was 155.
Okay.
Like now, I walk around like on fight day like 165.
Yeah, you hear guys like beefing up a ton afterwards. Like fighting at 45 going to 55 isn't that much.
No, it was like it was. I was tiny. I was still like even now the difference between now and back then, it's definitely different. Like I gained a lot more muscle and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I'm obviously he grew a lot too. You know, to go do what he done and to keep doing what he's doing. It's motivating my side as well. So to see the guy that everybody's coming after, and I already had a history with him, so it makes it even better.
And now going back to that first run of the UFC, you had 7 straight decisions. Now you've had 6 finishes in your last 7 fights. Did anything change for you, or were you just like, I gotta start putting these people away?
I'm trying to change my life, man. And I know being in this sport and the experience behind my back that I had and all that stuff, decisions really don't do you nothing. The only decision that's going to do you something is top five, top seven. That's the only things. Like, look at Ilya. He beats a decision against Josh Emmett, unanimous decision, and then he gets a title shot. So I feel like that's the only time that really can get away with a decision. But I feel like in the upcoming and all that stuff, they all talk about finishes. You know, they always talk about what you done in your last fight. You know what I mean? So I feel like I said, like I'm trying to change my life and everything is with purpose. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to play games here. Like, hey, you beat me, you beat me. Like you got me. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna make this easy. So that's my thing, and that's where like the biggest thing that changed. And that boxing fight, I should have finished that fight too, man. I fought a guy that fought all he does is boxing and he's a Golden Glove amateur champ and this and this and this and that. And I go out there and just outschool this kid. Like he doesn't even belong in boxing. So that's kind of like my motivation and like my push now. It's like, hey man, like you have to fight me. Like you haven't fought me. Like I always focus on like, oh, I'm fighting this guy. I'm fighting this guy. I was like, you haven't fought somebody like me ever. So and that's what I bring to the table.
No, 100%. And I think when you were outside of the UFC for that period, you got to do a couple mixed rules fights like the boxing and the kickboxing. A lot of UFC fighters don't get to do that, you know? You got a little bit out of it.
No, it was pretty cool because my teammate Dustin Jacoby, he's in the UFC as well. He done that and he won that and he went to the contenders after that. So it was kind of like a deja vu between me and him. Like I did it and I went straight to the UFC. So it was pretty cool.
No, that's awesome. And like we said earlier, you're taking on Jack Shore next weekend. It's a big fight. You're on the main card. Up until this year, basically, Jack Shore was this huge, highly touted, undefeated prospect. He's fought some good guys and has 2 losses now, but beat Makwan Amirkhani in the middle. He's a big prospect. What are you more excited for? Fighting in front of a big crowd or fighting a highly ranked prospect?
Oh, definitely find the name. That's why I jumped on that opportunity. I mean, like Jack Shore is no joke. I feel like people still like, oh, he's 1-1, he's going down. But I was like, it's a tough ass fight. I think he's the toughest fight coming back for me, to be honest. I feel like it's a scary fight. You know what I mean? But again, it's like I have to be prepared for the best Jack Shore, the ranked guy that was in the bantamweight. He was like number 12 when he fought Ricky Simone or something like that. So he's a very dangerous guy, and I have to give the respect where respect is due, and then obviously I have to give where the talent is due as well. So it's definitely a matchup that I'm very excited about, and I'm very excited to solve that puzzle.
Yeah, and Jack Shore, like you said, he's super dangerous. What do you think makes him that dangerous? Like, is there anything a part of his game that stands out to you?
He's grappling. I'll tell you he's grappling. He's definitely has a high IQ in the grappling aspect of it, and that's why I'm very excited. Like we said in the beginning, to one to test out my black belt, and two to test out my whole IQ as well. So I'm very excited for that puzzle.
Awesome. Stanley, you got anything else?
Yeah, no, I think we've covered it all. We mentioned that Drake could be in attendance. What are you going to do anything to get his attention, perhaps?
Oh, bro, if he's there, bro, oh my God, I would lose my mind. I was like, I gotta take a picture, bro. I was like, I gotta take a picture or video or something, bro. I was like, man, and especially if he's there, bro, you get to hear it out the old school Drake up all night too. Like, come on, man, hell yeah, man, I'll be pumped.
You just can't let him bet on you. Don't let him bet on you.
Yeah.
Nah, 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 nah. Bet on me. Watch, I'll prove everybody wrong too. Nah, nah, nah. Don't worry
No,
about
you
that.
can't put the curse
We'll
on
win.
The
yourself.
Drake curse, you can't have that.
Nah, 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 nah. We'll change that curse. Trust me, we'll win. We'll win. I promise you, we'll win. Don't
Nice.
worry about that.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Zalal. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you guys.